Reuters, the U.S. Secret Service on Sunday denied a suggestion from President Donald Trump's personal lawyer that it had vetted a meeting between the president's son and Russian nationals during the 2016 campaign. Donald Trump Jr. has acknowledged that he met in New York with Russian lawyer Natalia Veselnitskaya after he was told she might have damaging information about his father's rival, Democrat Hillary Clinton. Well, I wonder why the Secret Service, if this was nefarious, why the Secret Service allowed these people in. The president had Secret Service protection at that point, and that raised a question with me, Jay Sekulow, a member of the president's legal team, said on Sunday on the ABC News program This Week. In an emailed response to questions about Sekulow's comments, Secret Service spokesman Mason Brayman said the younger Trump was not under Secret Service protection at the time of the meeting, which included Trump's son and two senior campaign officials. Donald Trump, Jr. was not a protectee of the USSS in June 2016. Thus we would not have screened anyone he was meeting with at that time, the statement said. According to emails released by Trump Jr. last week, he eagerly agreed to meet Veselnitskaya, who he was told was a Russian government lawyer. Veselnitskaya has said she is a private lawyer and denies having Kremlin ties. On Friday, NBC News reported that a lobbyist who was once a Soviet counterintelligence officer participated in the meeting, which was also attended by Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and the president's former campaign manager, Paul Manafort. The meeting appears to be the most tangible evidence of a connection between Trump's election campaign and Russia, a subject that has prompted investigations by congressional committees and a federal special counsel. Moscow has denied any interference and the president and Trump Jr. have denied any collusion. Sekulow's comments about the Secret Service drew quick criticism, including from Frances Townsend, who advised former Republican President George W. Bush on Homeland Security. Okay, let's try to deflect blame and throw those in its Secret Service who protect at POTUS at real Donald Trump at FLOTUS and family under the bus, she said on Twitter. The Secret Service's mission is to provide physical protection for the U.S. president. The agency also protects major presidential candidates. But its role in vetting people who meet with the U.S. president or candidates is limited to ensuring physical safety. Lawyer, Trump unaware of meeting. Trump himself has said he was unaware of the meeting between his son and the Russian lawyer until a few days ago. The president was not aware about this meeting, did not participate in this meeting, Sekulow told the CBS program Face the Nation. Sekulow added that Trump was not aware of any meetings between his campaign staff and Russians. A federal special counsel and several congressional panels are investigating allegations by U.S. intelligence agencies that Russia meddled in the 2016 U.S. presidential election to hurt Clinton and help Trump. They are also investigating potential connections between Russian officials and the Trump campaign. Senator Mark Warner, the top Democrat on one of the panels investigating the matter, the Senate Intelligence Committee, told CNN, the level of credibility from the senior level of this administration really is suspect. Warner said he wanted to hear from everyone who attended the June 2016 meeting. Whether we will be able to get the Russian nationals to come over and testify is an open question, but, those people that our committee has jurisdiction over, the Americans, I sure as heck want to talk to all of them, Warner said. As London feuds, full Brexit negotiations open in Brussels. Britain's Brexit minister pledged to get down to work as he kicked off a first full round of negotiations on Monday, but a year after Britain's voted narrowly to leave the EU, their government seemed at war with itself over the divorce terms. Her authority diminished after losing her majority in a June election she did not need to call. Prime Minister Theresa May has struggled to control rival cabinet ministers, worrying European Union negotiators who stress that 20 months until Brexit is very little time to negotiate an orderly departure. It's time to get down to work and make this a successful negotiation, veteran anti-EU campaigner David Davis said as he was welcomed by the bloc's chief negotiator Michel Barnier before their teams began 4 days of talks. In London, media were rife with reports of infighting echoing the Leave Remain rifts that May's Conservative Party suffered during the EU referendum. Her spokesman said she would tell ministers not to reveal cabinet discussions. Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson, in Brussels for a separate meeting, passed up a chance to deny that ministers are at odds. His backing helped secure a 4-point victory for the Leave camp in June last year. Asked point-blank if the cabinet was still split on Brexit, Johnson simply said he was pleased negotiations had begun and then defended the offer May has made to protect the rights of EU citizens in Britain. Deal at risk? Finance Minister Philip Hammond, who like May campaigned last year to keep Britain in the EU, accused unnamed colleagues of trying to undermine what is seen as his push for a soft Brexit that prioritizes trade rather than hardliners' demands for controls on EU immigration or an end to EU legal oversight. Splits in London over basic issues, such as the need for a phased withdrawal lasting for some years, could raise the risk of a failure to reach any deal, EU officials say. That would raise huge uncertainty for businesses and millions of people across Europe, as Britain would simply be out of the bloc on March 30, 2019, with no clear rules on what that should mean. London and Brussels have taken initial negotiating positions saying they are ready for such an outcome. But most officials in Brussels believe Britain, for one, must be bluffing, since the legal limbo into which it would be pitched would be so damaging. However, Gus O'Donnell, Britain's former top civil servant, said the chances of a smooth Brexit were at risk. It appears that cabinet members haven't yet finished negotiating with each other, never mind the EU, he said. British businesses are anxious to see a coherent approach in government to indicate early on how a transition would work and how long it would run to help them make investment decisions. A weekend of media briefings from competing factions within the Conservatives did little to reassure companies, though most cabinet ministers appear now to accept that there needs to be a transition, or what may cause an implementation phase. No notes Davis, in Brussels. Davis acknowledged it was incredibly important to make progress, that we negotiate through this and identify the differences so that we can deal with them and identify the similarities so that we can reinforce them. Barnier said, "We will now delve into the heart of the matter," before the two sat down for a first meeting flanked by the officials who will lead the detailed negotiations. Pictures showed a lack of notes on the table in front of Davis and his two advisors, in contrast to sheaves of paperwork brought by Barnier and his team. That prompted mockery among critical British commentators who saw it as an image of the government's failure to prepare for such a vital negotiation. Davis later returned to London, leaving talks in the hands of the civil servants on both sides. Barnier and Davis are to brief the media on Thursday, when they would give political endorsement to whatever officials have managed to agree. Working groups will focus on three issues. Citizens' rights. The EU demand that Britain pay some €60 billion, $69 billion, to cover ongoing EU budget commitments, and other loose ends. Barnier has dismissed the British rights offer as falling short of the EU demand that its 3 million citizens there keep all their existing rights for life and have recourse to the EU courts to enforce those rights even after Britain has left. A fourth set of talks, run by Davis and Barnier's deputies Oliver Robbins and Sabine Wayand, will focus on curbing problems in Northern Ireland once a new EU land border separates the British province from EU member Ireland to the south. Some of that will have to wait for clarity on future trade relations. Breaking not so fast, U.S. restaurant workers seek ban on surprise scheduling. New York, Reuters. The text message came as Flavia Cabral walked to a McDonald's restaurant in Manhattan for her 6 p.m. shift on a May evening. It was from her manager. Business was slow and she was not needed. Cabral said she was not too surprised. Her work hours fluctuate almost weekly, though losing an entire shift at the last minute happens only once every few months. This time the cancelled shift took a $63 bite out of her average $350 gross weekly earnings from 2 part-time jobs. Every week you're guessing how much money you're going to get and how many days you're going to work, said Cabral, 53, who has been employed at McDonald's for 4 years. But a measure of relief is coming for Cabral and 65,000 other New York City fast food workers whose schedules and incomes often change with little or no notice. New York recently became the largest U.S. city to require fast food restaurants to schedule workers at least 2 weeks in advance, or pay them extra for changes. The law, which the restaurant industry vigorously opposed, also requires employers to allow 11-hour breaks between shifts, offer part-time staff additional work before hiring new employees, and pay retail workers to be on call. It takes effect late this year. McDonald's Corp did not respond to a request for comment. Nationwide, the issue of scheduling is becoming a new battleground in the fight to boost living standards for low-paid workers, waged largely by the Fight for $15 movement. The 5-year-old, union-backed initiative has already helped convince many jurisdictions, including New York State, to raise minimum wages. In Oregon, a bill that would set regular scheduling for workers at large food service, hospitality and retail companies is awaiting the governor's signature. Similar bills are pending in 5 other states. Not only do fluctuating schedules wreak havoc with tight household budgets, they make it difficult to make appointments, arrange childcare and plan family time, workers point out. The restaurant industry vigorously opposed the New York City law. Combined with higher minimum wages, scheduling requirements will eventually cripple some fast food outlets, which mostly operate on thin profit margins of 1.5 to 3%, it says. With a business model based on offering workers entry-level opportunities, not living wages, fast food restaurants need flexible scheduling to survive, said industry advocate Louis Meyer, who runs fast food operations at New Jersey-based Bryant Group. There's no way you can stay in business, said Meyer, whose company employs 1,000 workers at about 24 franchised Wendy's and TGI Fridays in New York. It's like having a disease. It's going to get you sooner or later. Workers at McDonald's, whose restaurants are mostly franchised, said weekly schedules are usually posted a day or two before they take effect. Still, they say they are often told at the last minute not to come to work or to punch out early. You could only have been on the clock for 2 hours and they'll tell you to go home, said Ashley Bruce, 22, who has worked for 4 years at a McDonald's on Chicago's South Side. The Chicago City Council is considering a scheduling bill that would cover 450,000 hourly workers. Variable scheduling began cropping up in the 1970s as companies sought to maximize profits to better attract investors, according to University of Chicago Associate Professor Susan Lambert, who studies scheduling practices. They're really looking at those labor budgets, she said. So, that puts enormous pressure on managers to really keep close track of how many hours you're using and how sales are going. Some use sophisticated workforce optimization systems to analyze sales, weather and other factors to determine how few workers they need to remain profitable at a given moment, Lambert said. Although fluctuating schedules affect mostly lower-paid workers, it is a management strategy that is starting to affect higher-paid jobs as well, as companies seek to transfer the risk of unsteady revenue to their employees. The New York City scheduling law was passed with strong support from unions, including Local 32BJ of the Service Employees International Union, even though almost all fast food workers are not unionized. But Local 32BJ President Hector Figueroa said winning scheduling rights for fast food workers also helps his union's 90,000 building service workers. Our members enjoy these rights under the contract, he said. But if other workers don't enjoy them, it's just a matter of time for an employer in a building or in a cleaning company to say, "Wait a minute, why do you guys need advance notice of scheduling?"